So, Bob, welcome. Today we are here at the Sea Otter Classic in Monterey, California. I'm very excited to have you here. We worked together in Vancouver in 2017, and you blew my mind with the way that you live your life. So I just want to give the audience a little bit of a perspective. You're a guy close to 75, 3 times a week. You and your buddies climb up a mountain in Vancouver, up Grouse Mountain early in the morning, and then on weekends you do your really crazy stuff.
That's right.
And that is phenomenal. And I call that a legend, but I just want to, for the viewers, give a little bit of a framework for what I see a legend to be. I read a book by Carlos Castaneda, and he talks about the 4 enemies of knowledge. And he says when a person starts to learn, you first encounter your first enemy of knowledge, which is fear. And by the type of events that you do, you have clearly defeated the enemy of fear, and you have gone on. But Carlos also says if you do that for long enough, you will meet your second enemy, because things will start looking clear to you. You will start thinking that you have figured it out. And that's when you've met your second enemy, clarity of mind. And you've also defeated clarity of mind because of the way that you interact with youth and young people and people like myself. When I came to Vancouver, not knowing the bicycle industry, you took me under your wing, you showed me the game. And then if you do clarity of mind, if you can defeat that enemy for long enough, people will see that and they will give you power. And you've also dealt with power very graciously. And then the 4th enemy is old age, which I think you have done remarkably well to take old age and say, you're not going to defeat me. And here you are at 75. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about these events that you will do on a weekend. You've done some heli biking, you've done some 7-day events around the world. Give me a few of your highlights of these events that you've participated in.
Well, thanks, Kobus, first of all, for inviting me. I'm a big fan of Sea Otter. I came here 15, 16 years ago. A little sidebar issue to that is the guy I came with, subsequently we were doing a training day, and he and another friend of mine drowned during the training expedition. So my memory of Sea Otter is a great event, but also the last time I really had an opportunity to spend time with my good friend.
Unbelievable.
So going back, a little bit of a background, I started in business when I was 17 years old, sweeping floors. Worked my way up, built a nice business, bought a printing company. And
that was over in the UK, if I'm not
No,
mistaken?
that was here.
Okay.
That was here, and by the time I was 41, 42, I realized that although I was quite successful in business, I had a big gap in my life, and that was my health. I'd put on weight. I wasn't drinking too much. I wasn't an alcoholic or anything, but I drank more than I should, and I smoked. A friend of mine asked me to go to Ironman and just carry his bag and be his gopher, and I did. And the experience of watching all the competitors and at Ironman really made me think. So I made a decision right then and there that the following year I was going to do Ironman. That was when I was 44 years old. So I trained for a year and successfully did Ironman the following year. Beat his record, by the way, or not his record, but beat his time. And then after Ironman, there was a magazine called Triathlete that had a full ad in it that said that there was a new race coming along, an adventure race. Nobody had really heard of adventure racing at that time. I'd been following it a little bit overseas with the French race of the Raid Gaulois and a couple of races in New Zealand, so I knew a bit of background. So I said to my friend, we should try this, and luckily we were able to get a team together, and so we did the inaugural year of a race called Eco Challenge, and subsequently went on to do 7 of them. I think it's fair to say I'm one of the only people, I think there's only 3 of us that did all 7.
Okay.
And I did it with more or less the same one guy and the other guy, well, 3 of us kind of on and off, but I did them all. But during that period, I also really put my head down at this point. It had changed my life so radically that I was also doing Ironman. I was doing Eco Challenge the same year. I was doing Ironman in the fall. I was doing Eco Challenge generally in the spring. I was also racing in Alaska in the winter on the Iditarod course, not on the Iditarod dog race, but on the 500K running race in February up in Alaska.
Wow.
And I was really, really enjoying life. But, as time went on, you can understand that, age starts to become a factor. But I discovered mountain biking at this point. Having done triathlete, I've been a lot on the road bike, but I hadn't
And
spent...
living in Vancouver, where there's such a great terrain for that.
Absolutely, it's like the North Shore of Hawaii for surfing.
That's
North
right.
Shore of Vancouver is known for its really the beginning of real proper downhill single track racing.
Right.
So I sort of took to it like a duck to water, unfortunately sometimes badly with a lot of injuries, but that's part of the learning curve of mountain biking. But we do have some pretty aggressive trails on that area.
Oh, from Mountain.
Yeah, Frome, Cypress, Seymour, and then up in Squamish. I mean, we have it all. And
then you've got the big Whistler bike park.
Yeah, we got the bike park, which I kind of keep out of now. At my age, the bike park's a place I keep away from.
That's aggressive.
You make a mistake there and you're going to pay for it big time.
Yeah.
So after, embracing mountain biking, I decided that I would take that internationally and go and do some international races. So I did the Trans-Andes 7-day mountain bike race.
This sounds so, you say it like every day, a 7-day mountain bike race. Most people don't even know what you're talking about. It is such a accomplishment. It's such an endurance event.
It is an endurance event. The days can be quite long. I'll sort of list off a few here, but I'll come to the one that really has the longest days. And anybody that mountain bikes will say, nobody should be mountain biking these distances. But the Trans-Andes, the Mongolian Bike Challenge, big days. They're all over 100K.
Wow.
And you're sleeping on the ground or whatever in tents.
And that's at high altitude where Genghis Khan and the guys ruled.
You're at altitude there, and that's pretty. But the other part of it is the excitement of visiting these countries. It's not just the racing; it's the whole feeling, the camaraderie with your friends. Usually traveling with a couple of friends, and meeting new people from all over the world. They're international races, so it's not uncommon to get 10, 12, 15 countries represented. A lot of South Africans I meet on the courses. One of the races I'm very fond of is the Trans-Portugal, which I've done 4 times. They have many long days, all over 100K, but one day is 170K.
And that's a lot of mud and rain.
It's everything.
And more than 600 miles.
Yeah, you're doing 1,100 kilometers in 7 days, so you're really working hard.
Wow.
But it's a very, very good race. That's why I did it 4 times. The race up in Alaska, which wasn't a mountain biking race, although the first year I did it, you can bike it, you can run it, or you can snowshoe it. It's in February. Stupidly, I decided to bike it. And this is before fat bikes or anything, so I get on my bike and I ride down Big Lake, which is about 8 kilometers on blue ice, which is fine. And then we hit the end of the lake into the snow, and the bike sank about a foot into the snow. And I realized that this was a really, really bad choice. Yeah. And I ended up carrying the bike for almost 80K with all the gear.
80 kilometers.
Carrying, pushing, shoving.
Wow.
I wanted to just throw it in a ditch and just give up and go away, but no, we continued on. To the point where I went back 4 other times to do it, but I ran it the rest of the time. It's 500K, and when I say run, it's a shuffle, pulling a sled, you're self-supported, and it's just the most incredible event because there is no safety whatsoever. The guy that ran it, and probably still does, says, "I'll give you a start line, a finish line, a T-shirt. The rest is up to you." And that's so you learn self-reliance. You know if you make a mistake out there and it's 30 below, 40 below, you're going to be in real trouble.
Right.
And I did carry a sat phone twice, but the other 3 times I didn't have any communication at all. So if you get in trouble, you're on your own.
Right. So this type of lifestyle has given you a bit of a mystique. So the people at the company that we work together with said that, well, Bob has been knighted by the Queen, and have you had any kind of recognition for this type of lifestyle?
Well, people it's hard to describe it. People just think that it's average now because I'm not blowing my own horn. That's the way I live. It's just my lifestyle. And I might add my friends' lifestyles, the group I hang with. We're all pretty well kindred spirits. And we've got a couple of Olympians on our group. We've got people that played for the Canadian basketball teams. We're talking about guys that are high level athletes. And when you're an ex-Olympian, it's pretty impressive. So I'm no ex-Olympian, but I sure as hell love hanging around them and getting that vibe off them about competition.
I remember at one weekend we had Cedric, who I believe is an ex-Olympian
rower.
And we had Bula, who's a gym homeowner
Yeah.
with 3 trunks for legs, and they were on snowshoes breaking the snow,
Yeah.
and we went up Dam Mountain,
Dam Mountain.
for 4 hours, and I had to come down again because it was too heavily snowed up.
Yeah,
at the
we
top.
were in snow up to our waist. We just couldn't go any further, and that was a long day.
And you will do heli drops for
Yeah.
bikes and all kinds of
Yeah,
different
actually,
things.
during COVID, of all times, we did a week of heli biking up in the interior of BC, which I might add is awesome. If you
can
ever get the
imagine.
opportunity to do heli biking, I mean, they take you to the top of the mountain and drop you in. And if you've ever been scared about going downhill mountain biking when you're coming off the top of a mountain where there is really no track, you're making your own track on the shale and everything until you hit the tree line. It's pretty spectacular.
So it sounds like you are surrounding yourself with like-minded people.
Absolutely.
You never had a mentor or somebody who really, that you looked up to try and copy?
Well, the first guy I mentioned that did Ironman, and I followed him. I would call him probably my mentor because he's a Texan, lives in
Okay.
Canada, very good, my best man. But he's a driving individual. He never takes no for an answer. I did the Alaska races with him,
Okay.
and I would give him credit really for starting me on the path to a different sort of lifestyle, attitude, everything. But what it's really done is helped me in business, because carrying that ability that never to say no, never to fail,
Yeah.
goes through into your business life.
Right.
But it also teaches you, which I wasn't very good at in my 20s and 30s, to deal with other people.
Yeah.
I was very independent in my 20s and 30s building my
Okay.
first business.
Okay.
But once I started to do teams, we'll call it team sports, I would race individually, but with friends, you had to think of everybody, and that
Right.
carried into my business life.
Right, and we talk about that next. I just want to finish a point where I see sometimes an external force or a mentor can take you to places where you never thought you could go. I had a Navy experience. I was forced to go to the Navy in South Africa, but they made me run with things I thought I would drop dead now. And then we finished a 20-kilometer race where I thought I would go once around the athletic track. And that opened my eyes to say that I'm not the best judge of what I can do and the outside force. But Laird Hamilton, the big
Yeah.
wave surfer, he also grew up with a group of guys, and they on the North Shore of Hawaii, they figured out how to really pull each other into the big waves and master that art. So sometimes in a group you can excel above
Yes.
the masses, but that applies for business as well. But I want to stay for sport for a minute. Rafa Nadal, the tennis player,
Yeah.
for instance, had Tony Nadal in a very tug-of-war relationship. So Tony would really make things uncomfortable for Rafael early in his career, but he did imprint the respect for other people that Rafa Nadal is now known for. And I just want to see, where do you see that outside force or a group of guys pushing you to a higher level?
Well, I'll even go back a little further, and I don't want to dwell on it too long, but my father was a colonel in the Scots Guards.
I see.
He was an orphan, ran away to sea when he was 12, did all these things, and he was a very, very tough. He won the second highest medal in the world, the Military Cross in Britain.
Okay.
And he was a driver. There was no question. When I swam in a tournament in Britain when I was 16, the British schoolboys, I came in second, and when I came home and told him, he said, "That's too bad." And that was the sort of attitude that I grew up with, but carrying that through into my later life with these guys I mentioned, the Olympians, and not just the Olympians, the other guys,
Yeah.
they're all, some of them are extremely successful business people, but we talk. When we go in the mountains, we have a rule.
Yeah.
The rule is we can talk about anything in the mountains. I know we're breathing hard and we're sucking wind, but we can talk about any subject you like. There's no wokeism in our group. But once we leave the mountain, it's gone. Whatever we talked about, and there's a lot of dissent among the group about some of the politics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what it does, it stimulates you, and that's
Yeah.
by hanging out with successful younger people.
Okay.
Brings to you. It brings to you that, I would call them, they're all my mentors. I listen to
Okay.
them.
Okay.
I have one friend who's, probably a billionaire, but he's a super fit guy. He's one of the big developers in Vancouver, but he's so intelligent. When I listen to him, I learn so much from him, and it's great. But he has trails in there that he takes us on. He says, "Come on, let's try this," that are really, really scary. I mean, we're talking loose rock. Oh, when I say loose rock, I mean you're climbing. You're using your hands, you're losing ropes, everything. And he takes us on this stuff, and I'm thinking, he's worth $1 billion. Why is he doing this? I mean, he's got everything to lose and not a lot to gain, but he does it,
Right.
and the rest of us follow him.
Right.
It's very cool.
So how does translate into business? You mentioned that a few times, and that's very interesting because sometimes I got the sense that you are, first of all, you do amazing business stuff. I've seen some of the books that you made for these high-end condominiums to be sold, and that one Japanese book that was signed personally by artists, and it had hand-woven paper made in England and a wood cover. It was off the charts. What vision you can create a book with, but it looks like you make these excellent products to give yourself the money to have this lifestyle.
Correct. No.
Does the one drive the other one?
Money doesn't drive me.
Yeah.
The lack of money would drive me, in other words, But it's the game, it's the chase.
Okay.
I have a very good friend who was the ex-chairman of DDB, one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. And he and I have talked over the years, and we both agreed it's all about the chase. When he's chasing a new piece of business, it's the same as the way I feel.
I see.
And it's not just getting that one piece of business, continuing to service that business and grow with it. I have clients that I've had for 30, 40 years. The clients themselves might have moved on, but the companies haven't moved on. I still have the companies as clients. But the stimulation is, I'm not a particularly creative person, so I'm able to bring my creativity to the production of really good, I call it putting ink on paper. Taking it to the next level. I think that's really, I worked on a project that just won a job in Tokyo as being the finest job in the Creative Directors Award in Tokyo. It was done for a company in San Jose, and it was submitted. So that stuff really stimulates.
I can just imagine.
The job itself was worth $500,000, so it wasn't a cheap job. It made some money for the company and for me, but the bottom line was I got more satisfaction out of the fact that everybody appreciated and it won the award. That's the real thrill. It's like crossing the finish line, even if you're halfway down the pack. It's when you cross that finish line. A quick digress into an eco-challenge race we did in Borneo. The girl on our team was a little lazy on the paddle, we'll call it. It's a lot of adventure racing, if anybody doesn't know, is human-powered, 24 hours a day, non-supported racing. So you're on your own. They do have safety on the course, I will give them that. But having said that, you're on your own. And she wasn't much of a paddler, so the three of us, the three guys in the boat, we really had to paddle hard. And that takes a lot out of you when you're on day 6 or day 5. And I found in Borneo, and I'd found in other races, day 4 is the crux. On a 7-8 day race, day 4. Once you cross through day 4, something happens mentally and physically if you can get through that barrier. Because you're really at your depths on day 4.
That's why they make these events 6 or 7 days?
What they try to do is there's usually 80 teams, 70 teams. They try to weed it down fairly quickly. So the first 3 or 4 days, they push pretty hard, and a lot of teams drop out. Keep in mind, the average finishing group is probably 20 teams out of the 80. 60 teams don't even finish. So they try and edit it down just from a standpoint of manageability. And so by the time you get to day 4, the first 2 days you haven't slept. You don't sleep the first 2 days at all. And then you go 2 hours a day really after that a night. So
viewers will not even know what that means. You haven't slept for 2 days and you do this grueling event.
It's a mental game. You're staggering along actually in some instances. There was one section in a New Zealand race where we were on horseback, and I fell asleep on the horse and fell off the horse. The first time I knew what was happening is when I hit the ground, and we were so tired, you're just so tired. But what can you do? You get up and get back on the horse and keep going, You're
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's so, I used to call it the Disneyland for athletes, because you're in these environments that you could never in your life think of being in. You're in the Sulu Sea in Borneo, you're in the mountains of New Zealand, you're wherever, you're in China, out of Mongolia. When was I ever going to be in them? I remember saying to people, because I did have a sat phone in Mongolia, and I was out in a rock one night calling the office to check in, and I thought, this is bizarre. Here I am sitting on a rock in out of Mongolia calling my office, and they're all working away at their desk because of the time difference. And I'm thinking, if they only knew what it was really like. This is spectacular.
And that's what I wanted to share with the viewers, this incredible life you've had.
Yeah, it's no David Attenborough or anything like that as far as but I come from the east side of Glasgow.
Yeah.
So it's a nothing it's like the east side of a lot of towns. It's not a slum. I didn't come from a slum, but the slums weren't far away.
Yeah.
So to end up in these places at this point during my life, at any point during my life, was such a thrill. I wanted to scream out to my mum and say, "Mum, look at me now. You know, look at me now." At 17, when I left Scotland to come to Canada, you never thought I'd do anything. She wasn't a negative, but you know, you grew up in an environment where, you know, the kids are going to get a job in a factory or something, and you know, and not necessarily going to amount to much. And here I am. I've got a successful business. I've got 100 and odd employees. I'm traveling the world racing. Life is pretty damn good.
Exactly, yeah. No, I agree. So one of the other things I wanted to touch base on, early in my career in the 90s, my wife and I stopped by a cheetah breeding farm, and there were 2 camps of cheetahs. On the right-hand side were cheetahs that just came in from, I think it was Namibia, and they were wild. They were chasing the fence, and the hair on their backs were upright. You could see it, and muscular. They were much stronger. On the left-hand side were cheetahs that were bred in captivity, and they were purring and rolling in the dust and being hand-fed. And I saw this is the same breed. It's the same animal. And ever since, when I look at the business, I'm a certified turnaround professional. Other certified turnaround professionals out there want to know your perspective on this. When we get dropped into a business that's struggling, maybe they've been too comfortable, like the hand-fed cheetah, but how do you get that group of people, a team of people, to become more like the fierce, independent, muscular cheetah willingly, without having to go through force, to do it on a collaborative way?
I mean, if I had my way, I'd probably take the whole company and hike them up a mountain just to show them, you know, what they could be.
And there are companies that have done that, and that can be a mind opener.
Well, I'm a graduate of Outward Bound, way back in Scotland, way back, and that's what happened there. They would take you as a group out of the depths of Glasgow or wherever and into nowhere and expose you. Same with business. I just feel that because although I personally, and again, this is going to sound egotist, I've been quite successful. My business over the years, the business I've been involved with, has had its ups and downs. 2008 with the economy, COVID, I mean, there's things that I can't control. But during that period, it's to me, it's recognizing the strengths of your staff and pushing them, but not knowingly pushing, and not being overbearing to them, pushing them to the point that they'll bring their best to the table. I'm very, very aware of, I won't say non-criticizing, because I do criticize, but I criticize gently. But I want them to understand that they've got to push themselves to succeed.
Yeah.
They have to. They can't sit on their hands. And
I think the way that you've been leading, I saw you in this printing company, you were setting the example. And for a small team, that's good, because they can see how Bob does it and they try to keep up with you. But once you have multiple layers and a structure, then it's hard to copy your recipe, right?
Yes, to a point. I mean, I still see, if you set, you know, use the expression, it's kind of overworn, you know, set by example, but it is quite true. I was talking to my office this morning at 6 o'clock to my production manager. He was at home. Now, I shouldn't really call him at 6 o'clock in the morning, but the point is, he knows I'm up, and I know and he can't turn around and say, well, Bob's down in California having a great time in the sun riding a bike, because I'm not. I'm looking at both sides. So there's no animosity towards the fact that I am here. I'm controlling both sides, and so he's going to put in the extra effort when I'm away to make sure the company runs properly in my absence, or that his portion of the company runs properly. I lead by example, really. Just show people that, and how you treat not only your staff, but I'm a great believer in my vendors and I call my partners. I treat my partners well too, because we can't be all things as a company, my company, a printer. We can't do everything. So I need a really good support group out in the marketplace, them I treat very, very carefully, because without them, I'd be in trouble. That requires a lot of, you know, even sometimes when they've let me down and they've sent me a bill for more than it should be, I have to walk that line very carefully, and rather than saying I'm not paying, you know, go away, I have to, you know, negotiate, meet you halfway, let's put it in the next job, whatever. There's a way of handling it that just, encourages them to always support you when you're in trouble. When I say in trouble, when you've got a rush deadline that you need to meet, and they're not going to turn around and say, I can't do it.
Because the loyalty to people
Absolutely.
and the loyalty to suppliers must be balanced by a discipline to...
Well, that goes back to the team sports again. In adventure racing, when you're racing as a team, you're only, I remember seeing it in the very first race we did was in Utah, and the second the second thing we did of that day was horse.
Yeah.
It was called ride and run.
Right.
So 2 people on a horse, 2 people running. So you're running along, usually holding the tail of the horse or something, and the other 2 are galloping, and they are not galloping, trotting or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going about 26 miles. There is a break in between, or a horse break. But if the horse doesn't want to go, you're not going, and that's what happened. Some of the horses just decided they didn't want to go. So the team is standing there, and these are super fit athletes, looking at this horse going, come on, come on. And you realize that it doesn't matter how hard you try, it's only as good as your slowest person.
Right.
So you've got to pull everybody through.
Very, very true.
You've got to get that horse moving somehow so you get to the next level. And that's true in the group when you've got on that day 4, when everybody, during a 7-8 day race, during that race of your team of 4, somebody sometime is going to be done, and you've got to recognize that, because you're not done that day, you're okay, and pull them through that dark hole they're in.
Right.
We were doing a hike in the hike portion in one of the races, and one of my best friends, or my best friend that was on it, he was another Olympian. He was very, very quiet, and he said to me, so Bob, what's your thought on life? And we're walking along, I'm thinking, this is a very strange way to ask me that. So I was waxing on eloquently for, I don't know, an hour, just talking, blah, 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 blah. And then I said, and what's yours? And he said, same as yours. And I realized that he just used me to get through his dark hole.
Okay.
To hear my voice talk. He was in a lot of pain, but it was just to get him through that 1 hour that he was in the pit. And that's why he said the same as yours, because he had no thought. He just wanted to hear a voice, somebody to, soothe him through it. I mean, that's kind of cool.
It is, absolutely. So what advice would you have to people on also living this type of legendary life?
Well, carpe diem, of course, live life to its fullest.
Right. That's very important. I've seen that from you.
Yes, as you age and people that you know or have acquaintance with that start to pass away or get sick. I've had a couple of friends that have passed away from cancer.
Wow.
And well, we all have. I mean, that's just part of life. You realize that it can happen. I have a friend right now whose wife's going through it, and they're a super fit couple. But if they don't live for tomorrow, for what's going to happen tomorrow, they're always going to carry regret to God forbid, to wherever we're going. And so there's nothing I won't do if I'm given the chance. So I would say to anybody, given the opportunity, no matter what it is, if somehow or another you can work it into your life, whether it be athletics or whether it be travel, as long as it stimulates you in something, it's like your wish list. Everybody has this wish list of things they want to do before they die. Well, mine is to keep living. That's my wish list. Mine isn't to do a whole bunch of things before I die. I want to keep living. And at 75, I touch wood that I'll keep my health, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that, it's narrowing down. So things like downhill mountain biking now, I had a bad fall, so not downhill but mountain biking, but hiking about a year and a half, right during COVID, when I decided I was going to hang my bike up for a few months because I didn't want to end up in hospital. During COVID, I fell down a cliff running, fell 30 feet down a cliff, almost bust my neck, ended up in hospital.
Wow.
But at that point I went, holy shit, that could have been it, right? Then and there, I was gone. So every day I look at it with the attitude is, what's today going to bring? What am I going to do today that's going to be fun?
Right. Well, I want to truly thank you. You've been an inspiration to me, but also to many other people that will see this video. And I want to thank you for the example that you've set for us of what is possible from a human endurance point of view, and this exemplary life that you've lived. And I want to present you with
Wow.
a jersey. This is to be the legend ambassador for Head Bike USA.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
And we will be very honored to have you as our ambassador.
Kobus, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been a good friend, and this is wonderful, really wonderful. There's not a lot of times I can say that. This is something, I have a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old, and that's going to blow their mind because their old dad, their old 70, I'll be 75 in September, their old dad gets this. This is pretty special.
And when you think of the head brand, you are into ski and,
Yes.
and many sports.
World renowned.
Yeah.
And great brand. I mean, we talked earlier this morning, I'd forgotten how big they were in tennis, but certainly in skiing. If you mention the name Head, it's top of the line skis. So when it comes to bikes, I can only imagine that they're going to be a leader in bikes too.
Yeah.
And with the new advent of the e-bike, I can see that business is going to go right off the walls too.
Right. So you're going to help us do a few bike reviews now,
Yeah.
and we're looking forward to that. And really, I'm stoked to have you here. Thank you for making the
thank
time
you.
to meet with us, and
Appreciate it so
great
much.
life,
Let's go.
Bob. Thank you.
There you go. I wish I had shoulders big enough to do it justice.
Lift up the neck so we can see your name.
There,
on it.
there it is.
I
There
want
it
to
is.
zoom in.
That's good.
That's great. Fantastic.
Thank you, guys. Wow, that's awesome.